Yes, what's up? What's happening? It's Boston has entered the chat. George Balekji here. She's Laura Stickells. We're in the PNC Bank studio. It is a victory day for the Patriots. We'll get into all that. I mean, what a surprise week one for the Pats. But Laura, first off, welcome to the chat. First time on. Honored to be at the desk with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Normally I'm on Respect Her Game, but I'm really excited to talk some NFL today.
Yeah, we'll do that. Of course, we got a packed show. We'll go through what's trending in the NFL. We got plenty. I mean, there's no shortage. Games didn't even have to get kicked off to see that the NFL is the biggest topic. We'll talk Tyreek Hill, Dak Prescott, all that. Go through the Patriots-Bengals games as well. Tom Brady made his debut as a broadcaster. We'll get into that. How we grade TB12. We'll go through some winners and losers as well. But first, let's start off with what's trending around the league. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys 2 hours before kicking off. Well, the NFL kicked off. They kicked off later half, 4 o'clock. But literally on game day, agreed to a 4-year, $240 million extension, $231 million guaranteed, just to make a point that Dak has the most guaranteed money in NFL history, more than Deshaun Watson, who got that 100% guaranteed through $230 million. I see this Dak Prescott for $60 million man, according to APY in the NFL history. Everyone was saying this is where the QB market was going, Laura. But congrats to Dak getting paid. Shows up in the regular season. Very talented quarterback. In the MVP conversation every year the last few years. But Jerry Jones, this is a reminder that he's a moron. And this is the guy that comes out and says, well, no one can do the GM-ish like me, and he's cursing all up and down. And I love people that use 4-letter words. But the offseason they just had, everyone knew Dak and CeeDee Lamb wanted an extension. And Jerry said, no. Waited. Other guys got paid. For quarterbacks, it's Trevor Lawrence, it's Joe Burrow, names like that, Jordan Love. For wide receivers, it was Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore get an extension. CeeDee Lamb became the second highest paid receiver in the league. And Dak Prescott became the highest paid quarterback. He probably cost himself altogether like $30, $40, $60 million in guaranteed money, real money, just because he's an idiot. And we'll go, well, we're not going to pay him. It gets the last. And it's all about being the latest guy paid, which happened for those two receivers. So, happy for Dak, happy for CeeDee Lamb, but Jerry Jones, like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that there's a surprise with the number for Dak Prescott, because every single time you see a quarterback contract come out or a wide receiver contract, it's always more than what the last guy got paid. You see that time and time again. So I'm not necessarily surprised about the number. I know a lot of people are obviously upset because Dak Prescott doesn't necessarily have that playoff success that especially the Cowboys organization wants. He's 2-5 in playoff games. But like you said earlier, like, he has shown success in the regular season. He was runner-up in MVP voting last season. But at the end of the day, like you said, this holdout from Jerry Jones, I don't necessarily think was a smart move, because the longer you wait, the more you're going to have to pay for those reasons that you just laid out. Once another guy gets their contract, then you see the next guy want to get more than that. I mean, that's the whole situation with Jamar Chase, right? Which I'm sure we'll get into on this podcast. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation for the Cowboys, but I think for me too, it's just that they had to pay both Dak and CeeDee Lamb in the same offseason. Like, paying huge bags for both guys, that's going to be tough down the road.
And this roster gets worse. I mean, like, they can't pay as many guys to fill out this roster, again, because they waited. And, like, the difference could have been, what, maybe $5 million a year, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of, like, NFL money if we're talking $5 million every year. But that $5 million every year could be allocated to different parts of the roster. I think Jerry Jones is an idiot. But you know, if it benefits Dak and CeeDee Lamb, like, good for them. And you mentioned it. I mean, what Dak is getting paid, $60 million a year, $240 million over the next 4 years. The real money is guaranteed money. That's what I pay attention to. That is the tax of you would rather have a quarterback, no matter what they've done in the playoffs. You'd rather have a quarterback than not have one. And in the upcoming draft, where the Cowboys would be a good team, they're not going to be picking early enough to get a Carson Beck, maybe a Shedeur Sanders, maybe a Dylan Gabriel, maybe a Quinn Ewers. Like, those guys could be gone. They'd rather have Dak in that building, who also is a good leader, and credit to them. But again, just done what they paid. We'll see Brock Purdy. When he gets paid, it's going to be like 62, 64, 65 million a year. For a 7th round pick. For Mr. Irrelevant and Brock Purdy, he'll get paid. Speaking of sticking with the NFL, let's go to Kendrick Lamar. Super Bowl halftime show announced. What do you think of that?
So,
it will be Kendrick.
I don't listen to Kendrick Lamar at all. When I heard that he was announced as the Super Bowl halftime performer, I literally had to look up his songs. I am familiar, now that I looked up, on Spotify, what his songs are. I am familiar with the song Humble. Besides that, I do not listen to rap music. I'm a big country girl. So, I'll happily listen to the halftime show. That's not why I tune into the Super Bowl per
Yeah.
se, but I will watch Kendrick Lamar at halftime. I always admire artists for what they bring. Even if I don't listen to them, it doesn't mean that I don't think that they're great musicians. So good for him. But I don't know. How about you? Can you educate me on Kendrick Lamar?
You didn't know about the Drake Lamar beef? Like the Drake Kendrick Lamar?
Fill me in.
So, well, this is what makes it beautiful is that the whole beef started over Drake and J. Cole. J. Cole's my favorite rapper. Making a song called
these names
First
are
Person Shooter.
Straight over my
And a
head.
line in that is literally like bigger than the Super Bowl is how they put it of Drake and J. Cole teaming up on a track. And Drake's entire catalog, his entire persona, everything he does is built to be a Super Bowl halftime show. And then Kendrick Lamar, if it was a boxing match, knocked him out in the first round. Drake tried to get up before he could get up, knocked him out again, said, "You're not getting up." So for Kendrick to do this and get the Super Bowl halftime show, like Drake's screwed. Like this it should have been him. Like that's the one thing missing from his resume. On top of the way Kendrick buried him, like literally in the song lyrics, Kendrick Lamar accuses Drake of being a pedophile. And he's going to rap about that at halftime of the Super Bowl. Like that song will be played. We'll see if people catch on lyrics. But that's Drake's future. So for a rapper where everything that he's done has been built to one day be a Super Bowl halftime show, and he would totally lean into that. Like Drake's obnoxious. Like the Kentucky shooting threes in the warm-ups, like always siding with whatever team. Like he would make it all about him. Kendrick getting this, I mean, it's huge for rap. I mean, and it's smart on Super Bowl, like taking advantage of how big Kendrick's name is right now. So yeah, that's what makes it interesting. I think that's what makes it sweeter. Like everything Drake does is to one day be the Super Bowl halftime show. A reminder how bad Kendrick beat him in the beef was getting this.
Well, this was a great summary because now I'm fired up for the halftime show. I had no idea who Kendrick Lamar really was going into this. I know it's a bad look for me, but I am a country girl through and through. And, if you get Luke Bryan or something on for the halftime show, I would tune in for that. Hasn't he performed at halftime?
Luke Bryan?
Yeah.
I don't know. At halftime of a Super Bowl?
Has he?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't know.
I listen to some Luke Bryan, not a ton. Okay. See the difference? Well, but to go to your point of like, if anyone's gonna jump on Laura for not listening to Kendrick or Lamar, Kendrick or Drake, like go touch grass. Because I've been one on this where we spoke about Travis Kelce and all the endorsements he's getting. I go, well, that's a benefit of him dating Taylor Swift, who's the biggest star in the world. I would say like she's number one. I would say Drake is two. Like their star power as perfommers, right? Like they sell out arenas around the world.
What about Beyonce?
Yeah, Beyonce's up there. Oh, the Beehive's going to come out.
Yeah,
I love Beyonce. No. All right, exactly. Like we can get, there's like Elton John. Like we could really get in the weeds. But Drake is that big and Kendrick got the nod over him. But to that point of, we spoke about that. I go, benefit, Travis Kelce, good looking guy, best tight end in the league, dating Taylor Swift. Obviously marketing, people are going to take advantage of it. And I go, I'm not a Swiftie. Everyone was saying, don't talk about Taylor Swift and say you're not a Swiftie. I was talking about her star power and for Travis Kelce. So if anyone goes to Laura on that, back up. And you're also someone that's gone to Singapore to see Taylor Swift. So
I am, but
you're a dedicated fan of the music.
I just want to say, like, I know that Kendrick Lamar, I'm sure is a really great artist. It's just I just don't happen to listen to him, and that's okay. Fine. That's okay.
Beauty of music. You'll check him out at halftime. Maybe they'll turn you into a fan. All right, let's get into like before. Again, we haven't even spoken about games on the field yet, and a great kickoff Sunday in the NFL. Tyreek Hill detained, handcuffed, cited for reckless driving outside of the Dolphins Stadium prior to the game. Like when this happened, I think it was around 11 a.m. Yeah, right around 11 a.m., close to noon. I'm just scrolling through my timeline on Twitter. If there was an NFL player for this to happen to before a game, let alone the kickoff to the season, I was not shocked at all. It was Tyreek Hill. Now, reports came out, Jeff Darlington of ESPN did a great job. Apparently, he got pulled over. It was a verbal altercation with the police, basically yelling at him. They didn't like it, took him out, handcuffed him, cited him. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, basically stopped short of saying we're going to sue the police department because it wasn't right what they did to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill goes out and scores a touchdown. His celebration is him being handcuffed, which is chef's kiss and all this. Just insane. And like, this is the NFL. Before a single game kicks off, Tyreek Hill getting handcuffed before going to a game and scoring a touchdown. You see him and Jalen Waddle, his wide receiver 2 to him, teaming up for this. I mean, it's just like, this is what the NFL dreams of. Like, taking over the entire day before a single game kicked off. Also just like insane this happened. And good for him to play well enough to execute on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to say, like, I do think this situation is slightly alarming, especially when you look at some of the video footage coming out of the way that he was detained and the way that the officers were handling him. It was actually very forceful. And at the end of the day, you're thankful that nothing bad actually happened and nothing kind of came from that. I know a lot of people are comparing it to what happened with Scottie Scheffler, but at the end of the day, it's actually a very different situation, especially when it's a black man. Like, we see how situations like this happen every single day, and they can turn out extremely poorly. And I know you said like you weren't necessarily surprised that this was Tyreek Hill. I know obviously his allegations of domestic violence and his track record comes up in all of this, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is a minor traffic violation, and one does not warrant the other. Like, his past does not warrant the way in which that this kind of unfolded and what we saw. Now, granted, like, there's still a lot more to come out of this, having a better understanding of what did happen within, you know, the verbal altercation with the police officers, getting a better sense of like why this happened. I know that the police department says that they're going to be kind of looking into this and investigating it. But at the end of the day, I'm just thankful that nothing worse happened.
No, we've seen like this go towards the worst like time and time again. It's one thing to be handcuffed and escorted out of the car. It's like the way they take him down to the ground. It's like multiple 3-4 officers as well.
Yeah, and I know like at the end of the day, he has that 80-yard touchdown. He does the whole celebration, but I don't want that to take away from what a serious situation it could have been.
Yeah. It's just a guy that we've seen in the past. I mean, fiery personality. We know he's a colorful personality as well. It's just in that moment too of, I don't obviously wasn't in Miami. We don't know what happened, and like nothing justifies the cops to wrestle someone down to the ground. But between like you were speeding, driving a fast car, you get a ticket, one of those things of like Tyreek Hill to be composed enough. And I know the dynamics that are in the society of like black people are treated different when they get pulled over than someone that looks like me or you, of course. But it is like, I was speeding. I have a game to go play. Let me be composed. But to lead up to that. And then at that point, what can you do? It's hands off. And it was at a part too where it was, I believe it was reported by Jeff Darlington, Jonnu Smith and one other player were on their way to the stadium, like pulled over to try to de-escalate it. Like Drew Rosenhaus's agent was there trying to de-escalate it. So it was at a part where it's like, you don't have Jonnu Smith, Tyreek Hill, Drew Rosenhaus all coincidentally like coming off the same exit. This is a part of the stadium where it's clear like players are going in and like VIPs, important people in that stadium like them. So insane. And this happens while the Jamar Chase stuff is coming out, and also right before the Dak Prescott deal comes out, again, before a single game kicked off. It's like, what a wild Sunday in the NFL.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And I mean, it turns into a wild Sunday too for the Patriots, right? Who thought that they were going to have the kind of success that they did?
Yeah, still not over. I mean, I'm the one that I think they win 4 games at most. And this is one I chalked up of them losing, like in Cincinnati against a good defense. Patriots came out and dominated on the line of scrimmage. Like, let's get into that. I mean, final score for the Patriots winning 16-10. Ramondre Stevenson was great as a running back, 25 carries, 120 yards, 1 touchdown. But Joe Burrow was never comfortable dropping back to pass. He had 11 pressures. He was sacked 4 times, 7 hurries. Keon White and Josh Uche was great. And then the offensive line, outside of the left tackle situation, which was awful, like Chuks Okorafor benched 6 pass plays into the game, who allowed 3 pressures. Vidarian Lowe, not much better. They went out, they executed, they played smart football, disciplined football, aggressive football. And it was one of the biggest upsets, maybe the biggest upset of the weekend. I mean, they were, depending where you see, 9, 8.5, 7.5 point dogs. And the Patriots just owned the game. And it came down to them needing a drive to ice it, but like stop Joe Burrow and a great Bengals offense time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I thought that the Patriots were going to win this game. I did think that they would cover the spread because I actually thought this could be a really good matchup for the Patriots for a couple of reasons. First of all, Joe Burrow's never really been great to start the season. The Bengals usually are more of a peak at the right time kind of team. They're known for slow starts. I think Joe Burrow is now 1-8 in the first 2 games of the season. And then if you look at last season, the Bengals were terrible rush defense, had a terrible rush defense, could not stop the run. And that was something that you heard Gerard Mayo saying all offseason is that this offense was going to be built around, was around the run game. And they were able to do that. But then even beyond that, you have all these questions around Jamar Chase, whether or not he's going to play. And he didn't get those reps during the offseason. And I know people say, okay, well, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, they've been playing together since they were 19 years old at LSU. But that I do think makes a difference, especially when T. Higgins is out as well. It's like, who is Joe Burrow going to pass the ball to? And then lastly, when you look at how Jacoby Brissett had success against this Bengals team back in 2022, they had a really great day on the ground. I think Nick Chubb had a really great day rushing. So exactly what you said. Ramondre Stevenson, 25 carries for 120 yards. Second half, he's just like dragging guys. The Bengals know he's going to run the ball, and he's still having success. And you just see that the Patriots do seem to have a clear identity on offense. When they're not running the ball, they're utilizing the field. Jacoby Brissett was utilizing his receivers, utilizing his tight ends. And the one thing that I really wanted coming into this game for the Patriots was just to make a couple passes downfield, just so teams have to respect the pass. You know, they're obviously not going to be a great passing team. Obviously, the offensive line was a huge area of concern coming into this season. But there were a few passes downfield. I think it was Tyquan Thornton and Austin Hooper both had receptions over 15 yards, which I do think was important because it then opens up lanes for Stevenson to be able to run. So you really saw the whole thing come together. You saw how it all worked, and it was really impressive. And you know what? The O-line wasn't even a story because they were totally fine.
They even leaned into, I mean, Caden Wallace was brought in. They were like, well, he could be a left tackle, and he didn't look good at left tackle. He's obviously setting up and starting the season as a backup right tackler, just a depth piece. Well, they went jumbo tight end with Caden Wallace a ton, putting him on the right side. First time we see that, Ramondre broke a run, I believe 14 yards right off the right edge. So they're going to go in, they're going to pound the rock, and what they did was also stifle the Bengals on third down. I think Cincinnati finished 4 for 11. And the Patriots weren't much better, but they won the turnover battle, forcing 2 fumbles and recovering them. +2 in turnovers were key on third down, especially down the stretch. Jacoby Brissett, 15 for 24, 121 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Ugly, but in the key drive where they had to ice it and the last Joey Sly field goal to make it 16-10 and at least make it where Bengals would need a touchdown to win it. 3rd and 2, scrambled for a first down. 3rd and 4, finds Hunter Henry for a long gain. And then that set up Sly to make it 16-10. And then you go to the last drive of the game after getting a stop where we were all surprised watching it. If you're the Bengals, you're punting here. You have 3 timeouts, you have the 2-minute warning. We get it. Ramondre Stevenson, 1 run, putting 3 guys on skates, extending the play, just having his will. And again, it was just at the line of scrimmage, pushing them around offensively and defensively, just never letting Joe Burrow get comfortable, never letting Zach Moss or Chase Brown get any running lanes. And we saw what Ramondre Stevenson finished with. This is a team, came out shocked. I loved the Gatorade bath.
I was going to bring that up.
Guy. You can tell how much, obviously this means a ton for Gerard Mayo. But this roster as a whole, Jabril Peppers screaming from the sideline, them doing the Gatorade shower for Gerard Mayo, because this is a team all off season long. They've heard how they stink. They've heard it is one of the worst rosters in the NFL. They've heard the offensive line is awful. They've heard that they are going to get their asses kicked by the Bengals. They know the spread. They know what that means. And the elation, the celebration, good for Gerard Mayo, good for this roster. It feels like a Super Bowl for them, but it's everything they've also been through, the guys that have been there the last 2 seasons, even just the guys that were there last season, to go out and look like a solid, good football team. I just hope Patriots fans, they feel refreshed seeing that. No matter what happens from this point on, as long as they see a competent football team, it's a low bar, but that's what the bar needs to be right now because of how bad it's been the last 2 seasons.
I'm glad you brought up the Gatorade bath because on my drive in here, I'm listening to the radio and people are already talking about that. And it's already going to be, a point of debate. Should the Gatorade bath have happened or should it not have?
Have fun.
And exactly. I'm the same type of way that you are. I want players to be able to celebrate their successes. It's not supposed to be that serious. This is sport. I mean, obviously it's serious, especially in the NFL when players are making tons of money. But at the end of the day, this is sports. They're supposed to be having fun. It's supposed to be fun for everybody. And as somebody that has to watch the Patriots living in New England, I'm glad I get to watch a watchable football team. And I especially what you said, everything that Gerard Mayo has been through, everything that these players have been through. I mean, even hearing what Jacoby Brissett said after the game, that he said he cried 3 times. 3 times before the game even started. And there's also, this debate around, do players, coaches work in the NFL? Is Gerard Mayo too nice? And, he told Jacoby Brissett before the game started, you're going to go out there and you're going to win this game. And that was one of the times that he says he teared up. And I think with coaches, it's you need to know your players. And the best coaches coach every player a little bit differently. And you need to know which players need that tough love, which players need that, militaristic style coaching, and which players just need somebody to kind of champion them. And it's really exciting for Gerard Mayo. And I don't want to overreact. Do I think this team is going to go 500? No. Probably not. But no, it's just nice to see a watchable product on the field.
So minimal, but that's what you want to see. And it's credit to Jacoby Brissett, making plays with his legs. This offensive line, left tackle was tough, seeing that Chuks Okorafor get pulled so quick, and then Vidarian Lowe just be like, okay. But a lot of times, like back-to-back third down plays on back-to-back drives that had to be punts or field goals, blown up by pressure off the left edge. Jacoby Brissett escaped and got out of there and just lived to make sure the offense was in a scoring position, field goal-wise, or just playing field position game. But still, like, left guard, okay, with no City So. David Andrews, okay. Layden Robinson, all right. Mike Onwenu held his own at right tackle. Like, Jacoby Brissett working with still a group that's in the works of, like, figuring out who the five best guys are, did all right. And then opposite of the defense, holding Joe Burrow to under 200 yards passing. Like, how good the defensive line played without Matt Judon, without Christian Barmore. Like, Keon White stepping up time and time again. DeMarcus Covington, first-time defensive coordinator, the blitzes he was calling, the packages he was running. It was a defense of keeping everything in front of them. Don't let anything big happen behind them except for one Jamar Chase catch, really. And then bring the pressure. And, like, again, Joe Burrow didn't look comfortable. So it's just, for the Patriots to come out and execute like this, I'm fine with the Gatorade bath. And people, the players coach. Like, Andy Reid, he's a players coach. Matt LaFleur, players coach. Sean McVay, I think he can be a hard ass, but I think he's also a players coach, especially when he has a guy like Matt Stafford. Mike McDaniel, players coach. Like, the most successful coaches. John Harbaugh, he's a hard coach. But at the end of the day, every coach is going to, as you pointed out, like, knows how to motivate, knows how to talk to their players too. It's like he said that, like, Jacoby Brissett was brought to tears. He's like, hey man, you're going to go win. Like, you're going to win this game. He hasn't heard that belief in a while. Like
that's
that means
terrible.
a lot.
You know, it's terrible too as a player going out onto a field not feeling like your coach believes in you, not having somebody have confidence in you. So to know that this was the first time that he felt like somebody really believed in him like that. I mean, I'm so happy that he got that experience, but it's like, wow, it took this long into his career for him to feel like a coach had that kind of belief in him.
Like Brown's position, he was benched eventually. Commanders, he was benched for Sam Howell, for him finally being a spot. You're a week one starter. And then he knows also the outside pressure of who he's the starter in front of, the number 3 overall pick. But Gerard May would be like, we're playing you to win a game. We're not playing you to be tackling dummy. Maybe he is, but like, we're playing you to be confident in you to win a game. I think it's huge. You want to get to the game balls?
I do.
Let's do it. All right, we'll start offensive. So we got 3 game balls. We're going to go offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game. We'll go team MVP. Let's start with offensive player of the game. I think this one's easy, but who do you got?
Okay, mine, I mean, so I was a little unsure because you have offensive MVP and team MVP, but I went with my offensive MVP for Ramondre Stevenson. Nice. Obviously, like, an incredible game on the ground. He was the difference in the game. Yeah. Like, he's the reason why this team won this game.
Yeah.
Even like I said at the beginning, even when the Bengals knew that he was going to be running the ball, it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. I think 5 carries, 25 carries, 120 yards, 1 touchdown. And I went through his, like, rushing log. He only had 5 plays that were negative yards and carries, like -2 at most, or 0 yards gained. Everything else was positive downfield. Again, you haven't seen that in so long. And that just says, and that showcases what this offensive line did pushing up front, but also what Ramondre Stevenson did to, like, make guys miss. Like, offensive line opens up the running lanes. What your job as a running back is very simply, and what separates a good running back from a bad running back, can you make a guy miss? Because eventually there'll be someone to tackle you. And again, on the rush to ice the game, makes 3 tacklers miss, gets 12 or more yards, and goes down. I put Ramondre Stevenson. I gave him my game ball for offensive player. What about defensive player of the game? Who do you go with?
Okay, so there are 2 that I was kind of deciding between, but obviously the big matchup coming into this game, if Jamar Chase was going to play, was Christian Gonzalez. And he obviously only played 4 games last season before his injury, but he looked great in those 4 games. And it's like, can he build off of that against one of the most elite receivers in the league? And he did. Like, Jamar Chase was basically a non-factor in the game. And that is credit to Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, nothing deep downfield except that last catch he had, like, when they're making a push, they're going to take deeper shots. But I think it's a credit, like Christian Gonzalez and the secondary, like Kyle Duggar with a great forced fumble right at the goal line. What was it? Hudson, the tight end, backup tight end for the Bengals. Like, bad ball security, Kyle Duggar's effort and hustle makes a play. But, like, Christian Gonzalez too, like, keeping everything in front of them. And, like, that's what it is. It's like a bend, don't break. It's what a lot of the NFL does. And the pressure gets to it eventually. Defensive player of the game, I went with Keon White.
That was my runner-up. Yeah.
Right? It's just he had 4 pressures, 2.5 sacks, 1 hurry. If you ask Nick Saban, he says pressures are more important than sacks because you could be a great defensive player and never get to the quarterback, but pressures, you don't let them get comfortable is what happens. I think I've said it, like this might be the 17th time I've said it in this episode. Joe Burrow was not comfortable. One of the best quarterbacks in the game. Again, with an offensive line where they invested in the right tackle and Trent Brown, they were blowing everything up. I think Keon White was fantastic, and it's such big cleats for him to fill. He has to be the guy with no Matt Judon, who's now in Atlanta, with Christian Barmore likely done for the season, as we've heard reports. And Joshua Uche, even to back him up, as a third down pass rush specialist, played really well as well. What about team MVP? Who did you go to?
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was going to go with Gerard Mayo or Jacoby Brissett, but I ultimately went with Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, I do think that offensive MVP, that went to Ramondre Stevenson, but I think just the situation that Jacoby Brissett was put in this season, obviously a lot of Patriots fans wanting Drake May to be the starting quarterback this season, Brissett just taking the reins, clearly being a really good leader for this team as well, making sure the team bent, didn't break at times, and then I think the way that he executed the offense is what actually allowed, like I said at the beginning, is what allowed for Stevenson to be so successful. Him distributing the ball, running when he needed to, scrambling, making plays. He did everything, and he did enough to win.
It's all like the little things that were adding up. Like
right.
the Patriots, as you're watching this game, like they were just playing smarter, more disciplined football than the Bengals. And that's a Bengals team that is like a legit contender in the AFC. Like their expectation is Super Bowl. That's it. Like you have Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase still in your building. It's Super Bowl now or never for them and for them to beat them. I double dipped. I went team MVP. I went Ramondre Stevenson. I think he was the best player out of both teams. Like the best player we saw play in that 1 o'clock game in Cincinnati. So for that, I go MVP because as good as the offensive line got the pushes up front, as good as the defense played, they still need to move the ball. And I'll even go another MVP on this one. I think underrated was Joey Sly. 32, 35, 37. Those were his makes for field goals. You go back a season, Chad Ryland is inconsistent even from 30 to 40-yard range. Those little things like that. But Ramondre Stevenson got Joey Sly there, and Joey Sly brought it home. And Ramondre had the one touchdown the Patriots scored today as well.
I love you bringing up special teams. Speaking of special teams, we haven't talked about this yet, but the kickoffs, there was that one return, right? And
Arizona had one against the Bills.
Exactly. But other than that, I'm like, I was hoping for a little bit more.
I said it Thursday night, like I tweeted it, we're watching the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? Like it's Andy Reid and John Harbaugh, two of the smartest coaches in football. And they just said, F it, touchbacks. Like they're fine with that. Like we'll live with the team getting the ball on the 30. Put the ball on the 35, maybe I would say, I don't care, put it on the 40 because I do want to see more returns. But then we saw on the reverse too, watching some of the Cowboys-Browns game as well. Like the Cowboys went with the tactic of just hit a line drive to the returner, but don't give them a lot of time to get set up. And then the coverage team got down there. But yeah, I'm just like let down. Do they have to figure something out because they want more returns? We're not getting it.
I feel like maybe throughout the season, teams will kind of figure out how to utilize it more to their advantage. Maybe like teams haven't figured out quite how to exploit it yet because they haven't had enough time to really like trial and error different things. But I mean, you don't really want to be, special teams can go really wrong really quick. So it's like, do you really want to be trial and error during the regular season? I
was wondering that too, if Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, some of these coaches are like, we'll let other guys kick it. We'll let other teams kick it to a returner. Let's see how they cover it. Let's see what leads to successful returns as well. And like we'll take notes. And by week 3, week 4, we'll start kicking it. That's what I was wondering too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I talked about this on Respect Your Game, but like I'm a huge special teams nerd, and I think that there's like so many areas of special teams that you can exploit. So I'm actually really excited to see this. I was just maybe a little bit. We're not even through all of week 1 yet, obviously, and we're still like halfway through Sunday. But I'm excited to see, I guess, how it goes for the rest of the season. But so far through week 1, I'm like, I was hoping for a little bit more. I'm
an offensive line nerd, so I'll join you. Special teams is important. There's 3 parts of the game: offense, defense, special teams. That can make or break games. I think it's important too. Of like the Patriots have a functional special teams again. Like coverage was good, kicking field goals, punt coverage. Bryce Baringer. The win was a total like effect in the game in Cincinnati. We saw 2 booming punts, but like Baringer pinning guys in the corner, like coffin corner punts. Like again, when you're going to win games 16-10, it's going to come down to the final drive. Like it's within the margins, within the inches you have to win. And again, that's an upgrade from like what Cam Akord was doing the last 2 years. Like they brought him in, a new special teams coordinator. He did great for the Patriots.
Yeah, I think the one area that I might want to see some improvement on, and it's kind of hard to, I mean, I'm getting really nitpicky here, especially when they did win the turnover battle 2-0, but it's still, they got a little lucky with that. There was that Hunter Henry, it was supposed to be a pass to Hunter Henry in the end zone, which was nearly intercepted. I know the announcers were saying, oh, it's a 50-50 ball. I'm like, that was
an interception,
that was
in my
like,
opinion.
oh, I mean, I was like, they might want to review this, honestly. So that was one situation in which I was like, ooh, like, I know Jacoby Brissett is pretty good when it comes to ball security, but in any case, I was like, that could have been obviously a little bit like not great there. And then the other one was when Stevenson fumbled and then recovered it. But you got lucky in those two situations. So it's like, okay, like don't let ball security get any sloppier.
Even the first fumble they recovered was Hudson, the tight end, about to go into the red zone. He did like a swim move with the ball. Like you never do that.
Yeah.
And a great job by Duggar punching it out, but like that's bad. And then Irwin on a punt return fumbled it as well. So it's like we saw one team just not disciplined with the ball and taking care of it, and the other one taking advantage. But you're right. I know watching that one, I thought that was an interception all the way. So we got to watch some of the Cowboys-Browns game. I mean, that's a good matchup, seeing Dak against one of the best defenses and Micah Parsons versus Myles Garrett. Why I really want to watch it, I want to see how Tom Brady would debut as a broadcaster. I was at his jersey retirement ceremony, whatever they want to call it, his Hall of Fame ceremony for the Patriots in Gillette. And the speech he gave was absolutely fantastic. Like, he had all of Gillette Stadium in the palm of his hands. He had everyone wanting to run through a wall. Tom Brady's a great public speaker. From what I've heard of, like, the people that have gotten to know him, like, away from a camera, away from a field, just like a good dude, like a normal person for as big of a star he is, and charismatic. I mean, look at him. Of course he is. He's all the confidence in the world. He was tight. It's the first time he's ever done it, so I'm going to give a break. And he's with the pro of all pros in Kevin Burkhardt. But it's like watching, even from like the on-camera intro in the booth, switching between the camera, and Burkhardt was very slow with his cadence and how the words were coming out. And I feel like Brady was more focused on not messing up than doing a good job. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't distracting, but he didn't stand out. And there's a lot of expectations for a guy they're paying $37.5 million a year, Foxes, to do that. And also it's Tom Brady. So like, I wasn't wowed, but like, just like it's week one in the NFL, it's week one of the Patriots. I'm not going to say their season's going to be dictated off this result. I guess, Tom Brady will go better week by week. But for all the attention was getting around it, I was just like, oh, you know what? If he takes the plane and lands it without any turbulence the first time he's flying it, I think that's what he wants. And then week 2, he takes a plane off, then he'll start doing barrel rolls and doing, backflips, like all Top Gun stuff. And then the confidence goes from there. But I was under amused.
I think the hardest part of doing color commentary, and I've done a little bit of it, I know you've done some of it, it's figuring out like when to interject your voice and figuring out that like cadence between you and your broadcast partner. And I think once you figure that out and you're not overthinking that, then you can start to feel a little bit more natural and a little bit more comfortable. But I like what you brought up too about how he's a really great public speaker. I obviously do a lot of stuff on camera. I don't do a lot of public speaking. I have had to host like a couple in-person charity events, and that is far more stressful for me, like talking to a room of people, than it is talking to a camera, because I'm so used to talking to a camera. But when I get in actually like in front of people and I see people in the crowd, I'm like, whoa, this is different. And I would imagine that's very similar for Tom Brady, who does a lot more public speaking engagements, or has in the past. And now you're getting into a situation where you have to look into the camera and act like it's the people that you've been talking to your whole life. It's just a different situation, and it takes some time to be comfortable. You know what, George, you've heard this throughout your entire career, as have I. Reps are everything.
It is.
And you know what? I think there's no exception for Tom Brady.
And it's never as bad as you think it is.
True.
I think that's an important one. And also, like, you go into public speaking, like, you know what you're going to say. You know, if you're hosting something, whatever it may be, if you're going to go talk to a crowd, like Tom Brady's probably written it down, has it memorized. You ever give like a maid of honor speech or like officiate a wedding or anything? I
have not, but
okay.
I'm assuming you have.
I have. I've done both. And it was the most nerve-wracking thing when my buddy Mike asked me to be his best man. I mean, obviously I was stoked. And like literally I remember in the moment of him asking me, I'm giving him a hug. I'm giving a hug to his wife, Lex. I'm such good friends with them. Like it literally ran through my mind. I'm like, crap, I have to give a speech. Like, and I've never done this before. And that goes into prep. And but it's the same thing, like to your point of done it, got it out of the way, officiated a wedding. The key I got from that, I remember I made eye contact with my one buddy, Jordan. Thank God he was wearing sunglasses. But I almost started cracking up when I was officiating a wedding. And from that point on, I'm like, don't look at anybody. You know, look above the crowd, above the back row. But that's what it is. And like, he'll get better. You know, he was a little stiff. And you say it too, of the chemistry. That's one thing I'll give him, though, is that as I'm listening, he knew when to get in and get out in between plays. Compared to Tony Romo, who just vomits all over the call, absolutely ruins Jim Nantz, who's one of the best at what he does. Like, Kevin Burkhardt's fantastic. Tom Brady will find his footing and his confidence will come, but he understands like when the play starts and when to stop talking in a way.
Yeah, I think he'll be great. Like, I think he will be fine. I think it's just week 1 and he's still kind of figuring it out a little bit. The thing that actually stuck out to me first was I'm so used to seeing Tom Brady speaking and his like face being there that when I just heard his voice, I was like, oh, wow, his voice is just like a little bit higher.
I noticed that too.
Okay, I wasn't the only one. I was like,
yes,
that's Tom Brady. Like, his voice is just a little bit higher than I thought it was.
Yeah, it doesn't like break through as much too. Like, and you have Kevin Burkhardt, who, what is it, very, like, is it baritone if your voice is deep?
Yeah,
Are you a singer
so.
at
No,
all?
I'm not a singer.
I wasn't, okay. We just like music. But Kevin Burkhardt has a very deep voice, and he has that announcer's voice, that big game voice. And then Tom Brady's higher. And so it is when you go through hearing Burkhardt boom, Tom Brady doesn't boom as much. You know, not to do the boomer doom thing that's on TikTok. Do not. I'm sorry I had to reference that. But to the point being.
And I just love bringing that up too because, like, as a woman in sports, you get roasted for your voice all the time. People are always saying, oh, you need to make it deeper. You need to make it richer. And you know what? Tom Brady.
Who says that? People on Twitter?
Oh, I don't know. It's just like everywhere you go, you talk to an executive and you're like, oh, you should, you know, maybe like work on your voice a little bit or whatever it is. And it's like, I never take it really personally, but it's, you know, kind of nice when you hear somebody else, actually truly like when you hear a man and you're like, you know what? Maybe you could work on your voice a little bit too.
Oh yeah. I think he definitely, like, that stood out to me. I'm like, it needs to be deeper in some way. So now we're giving coaching to Tom Brady.
I don't want to say deeper, just like richer. And that's the piece of advice that I give to women too, because people are like, oh, your voice needs to be deeper or whatever. I'm like, no, your voice just needs to be like richer and fuller, like talk from your chest, not from your head. There's
like an authority you want to have too, like that command of when you're speaking and draws the attention as well.
Yeah.
Look at this. It's going like we're doing like a little broadcasting speech giving 101.
Yes,
the
exactly.
Chat as well.
Some advice.
This is the range you get when Laura and I are at the desk.
Exactly.
I'm excited. We'll see what game assignment he gets. Shout out to Greg Olson, New Jersey native. I thought he did a great job in the booth with Kevin Burkhardt, also New Jersey native. Sucks he got relegated to like the B team. He also had like the Falcons 15-10 loss. Like, oof. So that'll lead us to our next segment. We're going to go through winners and losers. I kind of alluded to who my loser is. Let's start with the winners, though. Week 1, as of the recording of this podcast, not the full 4 p.m. window has closed out in the NFL. But week 1, we could go back to Thursday night. You know, what was it? Chiefs, Ravens. Then, of course, Eagles, Packers. Been through some games. Who are your winners and losers so far in the NFL week 1?
Okay, so my winner is actually from the Friday night game, and it's Saquon Barkley. Makes his Eagles debut in South America. 3 touchdowns, 109 yards on 24 carries. Obviously, the Giants let him leave in free agency. He goes and signs with their rival, and because they said, oh, you know, running backs start to decline at age 27, and here he is, first game with the Eagles, and he's just absolutely balling out. And on that note, my loser, so we're flipping the script here, is now Giants ownership, because when you think back to Hard Knocks, and this clip was coming back out during this game, the offseason Hard Knocks co-owner John Mara, I have a tough time sleeping. If Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that. As I've told you, just being around enough players, he's the most popular player we have by far. That is my loser. The Giants ownership group did not want to lose Saquon. They did, and look at him now. They
should have pushed for more money. Now Joe Shane is trying to navigate. He's like, well, if you pay Saquon, we can't have the offensive line. It's amazing what Saquon Barkley can do with a good offensive line. Like, the Giants had one of the worst in the league. I still think they have one of the worst in the league right now. Saquon went to a great situation. We see how explosive of a player he is at 27. I think it's cool that someone that's so dynamic, someone that's so exciting to watch, and is a great dual threat back. Man, you go where you have Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. You have Jalen Hurts under center, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith giving you space, but like the red zone scores, it was sick to see from him.
And I guess it still remains to be seen whether or not the Giants' bet that he would decline would be true. Like, you're going to have to wait a couple of years to see how that pans out. But as it stands right now, it's a bad look.
It's bad. My winner, I keep it cute here. I'm going Gerard Mayo. I'm just going local. I mean, it's a Gatorade shower. It's him. It's an interesting quote he said post-game of thanking the Crafts. Literally said, not, and I quote, not getting in the middle of anything we did football-wise, end quote. basically saying, like, I want to thank the Crafts, obviously, for giving us the opportunity, thanking the Crafts for letting us go with Jacoby Brissett to build this team, to coach this team how we have. And for Gerard Mayo, I mean, they had a lot of, and we saw like a lot of padded practices, a lot of hitting. Like, he's like, we're going to come out and play football. A lot of long practices when it was really hot in New England, like those peak humid days of training camp. And it paid off how conditioned they were, and they came more ready to play than the Bengals. We'll see how it stretches out over 17 games. But again, a team that no one picked to win. No one picked to win, including me. Them to get that win. Gerard Mayo to get this. If it's the only win they get of the season, good for him. It's against the Bengals in week 1. I think they get 2, 3, maybe 4 more. And that's, again, my optimism or pessimism of them, but I go there. My loser, I went with the Atlanta Falcons. Like I just mentioned it. They lose 15-10. You're in your home dome. All this excitement. You give Kirk Cousins $180 million over 4 years. You bring Zach Robinson over from the LA Rams. You have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, all this. And you only score 10 points? Like, I get it. It's week 1. And I know the Steelers are a good team. That secondary is okay. But 10 points with Kirk? Like, that's just bad. That's just bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know that there was also a lot of excitement around that game, too, obviously, with 2 quarterbacks with new teams, but just, yeah.
A loser, you could go with Russell Wilson, too. I think a literal loser move, but it's weird because, I mean, Russell Wilson's quirky and weird. Like, you're scratched, dealing with the calf. Justin Fields still wears his shoulder pads, like the ultimate, like just hardo, weirdo, just what, Russ?
Yeah, that game, I mean, there could have been so many great storylines around it with Kirk Cousins and with Russell Wilson.
New home,
it was setting up to be like a great game just in terms of the storylines and just kind of like didn't really come to fruition. One
more winner I'll go in. We could talk brief. BC football, number 24 in the AP top 25. I mean, upset Florida State down in Tallahassee. I'm like, I don't think you're the 24th best team in the country for beating a bad FSU team and then Duquesne 56-0. But shout out to BC, shout out to the Heights. I mean, Bill O'Brien has that thing rolling. They're number 24, and right behind them is NIU, who just upset Notre Dame at 25. So that's exciting time for BC football right now.
Okay, well, here's what I'll say. You're right. The FSU team they played was bad. Like, that FSU team does not look good. That being said, they played really well in that game.
Oh, they dominated Florida State.
They dominated that game. Every time they needed to stop, they came up with one. Their quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, he struggled last year from the pocket. Doesn't seem to be struggling this year.
Bill O'Brien effect.
Exactly. But then when it comes to Duquesne, you're like, all right, like it's an FCS opponent, who cares? But that's what you're supposed to do against FCS opponents. I think they won 56-0. And that's the part that like I don't like when college football teams play FCS opponents and they don't do that. It's like that is what you are supposed to do. And I think the reason why they were ranked 24th is because they won the way that they did. Not only did they put up 56 points, but they shut them out. And that's what got them that number 24 ranking. And I mean, they play Missouri next week.
That's a big one.
They're ranked number 6.
Mizzou.
In Mizzou. Do I think they're going to win? No. But I think it's going to be a good match. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Like, that's a game that I want to watch. I think it's going to be a really great matchup. And I'm excited for this BC team. Like,
to keep it competitive.
I think they're going to be competitive, especially in this ACC. I mean, you kind of see the way the college football landscape is shifting. The ACC isn't necessarily as competitive as it's been in the past, but that opens up the door for somebody like Boston College to be competitive. And that's what I think is also so exciting about this new college football playoff when it's expanded. Because obviously, you hear people saying like, oh, well, only the SEC and the Big Ten is going to get into the college football playoff. That's not the case when you expand. Exactly. And I think that is truly the saving grace of the Big 12 and the ACC is the fact that the college football playoff has expanded. And that gives like a school like Boston College hope and reason to continue playing.
Yeah. And they avoid Miami on their schedule. At Mizzou, at Va Tech Thursday night. That's going to be tough. They host Michigan State, I believe. There's a Michigan State matchup in there too. Louisville, like there's a lot of tough matchups, but the path is there. And if this is a 3-4, maybe 5-loss BC team, like that's a really successful season for Boston College. And with the 12-game expansion, if you're not a conference winner, can you be top 12 ranked in the power? And there's all that and get into it. There's a path there. And you point out Castellanos, like he's playing on schedule. He doesn't have to do the hero ball yet, but he has that in his back pocket. There's a high ceiling for this BC team, especially by the standards. All right, Laura, this wraps up Boston's End of the Chat. First time on, what do you think?
Oh, I loved it. I hope you have me back.
I will.
I love talking the NFL. I hope you get me back on another Sunday. This is super fun.
What's the website you created again?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. This is
We got 1 minute.
This is humiliating. I'll get in really quick. So I have, oh my gosh, I don't even want to tell it because I don't want people to look. But on my website, laurastickles.com, I coded my entire website myself. I built a website over one summer. I was like, oh, I'll just teach myself how to code. I did the whole thing. I mean, I already knew how to code from Stanford, but I learned how to do front end stuff.
Went to Stanford.
I learned how to do front end stuff, designed my own website. And then I created this like NFL stats website a couple seasons ago. So there's some cool analytics projects on my website if you want to check it out.
I need to go check it out after this pod. She's Laura Stickells. I'm George Balekji. The website's awesome. Check it out. You showed it to me. I'm like, wait, you went to Stanford, created your own website, taught yourself how to code. Not worthy to share the desk with you. This was Boston, has entered the chat from the PNC Bank studio. We'll see you guys same time, same place tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone.